What a cool looking knife that we have here. This is the RR Station. Welcome to Edge Mindset, ladies and gentlemen. Carter here. We're going to be taking a look at this really cool and unique knife from Knife Standards. So for those that don't know, Knife Standards, he's here on YouTube. Started off as a review channel, knife channel, similar to me, but he has actually branched off into knife making, or rather knife designing. I believe he primarily or only contracts with overseas manufacturers to make his designs. And that's exactly what we have with this cool guy right here. This thing is not your standard overseas knife, in my opinion. There is some really cool stuff going on with this. So let's talk about some specs. Let's get some weight. Let's get some sizing. Let's talk about it. Let's have some fun. Hopefully I can convey what's cool about this knife, see if it's something you might be interested in getting, or just, maybe enjoy me talking about it. This is a large knife, fairly large knife, especially for a lot of what we're seeing nowadays from makers like this or designers like this. 4-inch blade. You don't see many people doing 4-inch blades, especially with this kind of design overseas OEM stuff. Kind of smaller, snappier, slicey is what's in style right now. Not that this isn't snappy and slicey. It's just definitely not smaller. Almost 9 inches, 8.75 inches. And one thing you may notice is, man, that is some good handle to blade ratio action going on here. And that is absolutely true. Look how long that blade is. Almost seems like it can't fit inside that handle when you're just looking at it. Designed really, really cool. So let's do a weight here. Super light, or at least for its size, it's super light. We are looking at 4.3 ounces. That's actually lower than what I was expecting. I am terrible at gauging weights. If you follow my channel, I always say, oh, this feels so light. I bet it's super light. And I put it on and it's not like way heavy, but it's heavy enough that what I said prior is dumb and doesn't make sense. This is the opposite. I made sure not to say that it feels super light because I'm like, I bet it's like 5 point something. And people are going to be like, that's not light. Very light knife. And that's due to the carbon fiber and the skeletonization and the deep, deep high hollow grind we have going on with this blade. All this fun stuff on this knife here. So where do we want to start, guys? Where do we want to start? I usually start with the blade. Should I start with the blade? I think I'll start with the blade. Let's do the blade. So we have, I guess, a Wharncliffe, right? Modified Wharncliffe. Flat edge right there. Super high, deep, hollow grind. Very thick stock. You can see the ATR right there. I can't think of what that stands for. It may have been, so let's segue a little bit here. So what is this? What do we have going on here? This knife is inspired by, I believe, the maker's grandfather, who is really into trains, hence RR Station, Railroad Station. This is supposed to resemble kind of boxcars, like a train, right? Boxcar. So very interesting. You don't see a lot of knives that are designed based off of automobiles, or I guess it's not an automobile, but transportation mechanisms like trains. You don't see that too often. So kind of cool, kind of quirky, but kind of cool. And it's also really cool how it's, in the family and it's dedicated to his grandfather. I believe it's his grandfather, maybe father. I think it's the grandfather. And designed a knife kind of based off of his love. You can see the RR right here for RR Station. Really cool pivot, by the way. So a lot of cool stuff like this going on in this knife. Let's get back to the blade. Back to the blade. Getting off track. Let's get back to the blade. Super thin, super slicey. Let's see if we can hear it. I don't know if you can hear it, but like that tingy kind of sound that you get when something is razor thin like that. So if you're into slicey blades, this is right up your alley. You've got the grind lines on there, which look really, really nice. You've got this really big fuller running through here. It is bead blasted inside that fuller. Nice flat top on the spine with some medium jimping. Fairly grippy, but not super over the top. But one of the coolest things about this blade is it is Vanex steel. Now, I'm not a big steel snob guy. I have a passive knowledge of it. But Vanex, based on what I've seen and heard, is pretty cool stuff. It doesn't have any carbon in it or very, very little carbon and uses nitrogen in its place. So it's essentially like a rust-proof steel. I don't think it's 100% rust-proof, but it's as close as you can get in a usable steel. So this stuff is great for wet, salty environments because it is not going to corrode like carbon steel does. But the magic with the Vanex, and I believe this is not just straight Vanex, I think it's the latest iteration of it, is that through metallurgy magic, they have made this steel comparable, if not exceeding, other super steels in terms of toughness and edge retention and hardness and all the things you love. So it's really quite amazing. Very rarely do you get a steel that kind of breaks the rules. And it seems like MagnaCut is kind of one of those, and Vanex is one of those, where you don't make all of the same sacrifices that you're used to making. Now, if you run the numbers in categories against other steels like MagnaCut, S30V, things like that, Vanex holds up surprisingly well. You really don't give up much, if anything, for the complete corrosion resistance. Why don't they use this more often? It's expensive. It's an expensive steel. I'm not sure if it's hard to machine, but it definitely is more expensive than standard steel. And really, unless you're in a very salty, wet environment, not usually needed for most people. Most people, oh, that's where it says Vanex right here on the other side. Most people are fine with regular steels. They don't need this kind of crazy stuff. So deployment, you've got thumb studs, which are awesome. I love seeing thumb studs. They're done pretty well, blackened. This fuller, you can also use the fuller to flick it open. I got pretty big, stumpy fingers, not too crazy. And I can just get the meat of my finger in the back there. Let's try the thumb. Not so much with the thumb, kind of. The primary mode of deployment, though, is the thumb studs, which you have full access to right there, really easy to get to. Titanium bolsters, and they've got kind of cool contouring. It's not a smooth contouring. It's got these steps in there, which kind of adds to the look of it. Let's see if we can get a contour there. Nice chamfered edges. This one is like an acid wash with a stone wash. And then this pivot, square pivot on the show side with the RR on there. Super, super cool. Got this curved bolster line right there. And then this one has the lava fat carbon scales, which look really, really good. They're affixed through the front with screws. Would have been awesome if they were hidden screws like on the JK V4s, but they are not too obtrusive. I'm glad they went blacked out and not silver, so they stick out like crazy. I had a Chavez that had the lava carbon on it, and it had shiny steel colored screws, and they just stuck out like a sore thumb. They are inset, so they don't stick out right there. You can see how it is an actual milled out piece. So technically, I mean, these aren't bolsters, right? These are inlays that mimic bolsters, but you know what I mean. Reversible pocket clip. There's the screw to hold the pocket clip right there. It's a little bit proud, but not completely. Flow through construction right there. The frame, I don't know if I can get the light in there. You can kind of see right there, they are skeletonized. So not only, let's see if you can see in there, there's circles through all of this here, even up into these faux bolsters. They've got pockets milled out. So not only is it super light because you're cutting out all this material for these big carbon fiber inlays, but it's skeletonized too. That's why it's so freaking light. This handle is super, super light. And the fact that this thick blade stock is so deeply hollow ground, that high through the whole width, reduces the weight of the blade as well. So crazy how light it is for how big this knife is. Two standoffs right here. Steel, I assume. They're blackened on this version. We've got a milled titanium pocket clip that is reversible for this side, I believe. This almost looks like it's set up for a wire clip. I have not tried to take this off, but I assume, interesting. Yeah, that is kind of interesting. I don't know how that affixes because, if we could focus here, because normally I would expect a pocket to be cut out of that carbon fiber that this clip would kind of sit into, but you don't have that going on here. So I don't know if it has a couple of tabs kind of sticking through that side. That would be kind of cool. Trying to see if I can't see anything looking through the scales. I can only see the top of the screw on the other side. So interesting there. Blackened clip. Everything's done super, super well. One of the other notable things on this is it's probably the smoothest, like drop shutty knife I think I've ever owned. Now, I'm not a big drop shutty like person, so I'm sure there's lots of knives that are as good as this, but for the ones I've had, this thing is the smoothest, most drop shutty, because this blade is not super heavy and it just falls. The smoothness on this thing is insane. Running on bearings, ball bearings, ceramic ball bearings. It has a lock bar insert here that comes in through the back. You only see the screw. Same thing on the scale on this side here. Everything's nice and centered. It's funny with a lot of modern knives, like back in the day, we used to spend a lot of time talking about, is it centered? Is the lock strong? Stuff like that. And now it's just, everything's so dialed in, you hardly even have to mention those things. The idea of, unless you're getting an Emerson or a Strider, the idea of a knife not being centered is kind of like, I don't know, not really a thing anymore. I paid full price for this. I actually pre-ordered this knife. I'm not sure if they're currently available in the store. If you follow Knife Standards on Instagram, I've noticed he has been posting some mini drops of different variations of this. There may be something on the website. I'm sure there'll be more coming. I should have got this video out. I've had this for a while. I should have got this video out quite a bit ago, but I don't know. I just didn't get around to it. But yeah, I pre-ordered this. I picked it up. I'm not a paid sponsor person, but his designs are just cool. They're unique, and that's what I like. I like aggressive. I like unique designs. I like bold designs. And this definitely falls in line with that. So if this is at all appealing for you or to you, don't hesitate to snag one of these when they become available. There's different versions and things like that out there. Oh, cost. I think these are just under $400. So about standard, knife standard, you get that. So about standard for this, right? You've got titanium, fat carbon fiber, super duper steel. A lot of good features on here. The price point is definitely not like a slap your mama crazy blowout deal, but it's not overpriced either. I think it's very much fair for kind of what you're getting here, especially for a smaller designer doing smaller batches of knives with such bold designs. All right, guys, that's it. What do you think of the RR Station? Would you ever pick one up? I think they're pretty dang cool. I plan on keeping this one. I have no plans of selling this. Something about that blade and those grind lines. It's just cool. The Vanex steel's cool. Everything on this thing is cool. Super smooth. Check it out. RR Station from Knife Standards. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, all the stuff. Catch you guys later on the next video.